If ever you had looked upon the banners of Arnor as they crested the hills like a tide of steel and valor, then you would know why the enemies of the north trembled at the sound of their horns. For few armies in Middle-earth could match their discipline, their quiet resolve, or the dignity they bore in every battle they fought. The night is deep, and my heart stirs with memories of war. So allow me to tell you of Arnor and the men who marched beneath its fading star. I am Cerfindol of Rivendell, and I have seen many years under sun and moon, and have walked the green paths of Middle-earth long before the kingdom of Arnor rose in the north. But I was there when it stood proud, and I bore witness when its glory began to dim like the last light on the western seas. Yet still I remember its host. And I tell you, no tale of Gondor, nor any account of Rohan's horse lords, can quite capture the quiet strength of the northern Dúnedain. Arnor was the realm of Elendil, High King of the Dúnedain, founded soon after the fall of Númenor. Its soldiers were his kin and descendants, steeped in the long traditions of Númenorian warfare. When first the kingdom was whole, before it fractured into Arthedain, Cardolan, and Rudor, their hosts were mighty indeed. The army of Arnor was not as vast as others to the south, for the land was wide and its people scattered, but each man easily was worth 10 lesser warriors. The core of their host were the men of the west, descended from Númenor, taller than the native men of Middle-earth, longer-lived, and possessing great wisdom and endurance. They trained in arms from their youth and kept alive the long martial traditions of their ancestors. Heavy infantry formed the backbone of the army. These were the Meneldurim, as we sometimes called them in Elvish. They were clad in mail of Númenorian craft, usually black or silver, and stood firm with crested helms and great shields embossed with 7 stars or the white tree. Their swords too were long and keen, heirlooms passed from father to son, and forged in forgotten days with skills now lost to most of Middle-earth. In times of extended campaigns, infantry trained to march great distances with little rest, eating waybread, a coarse, mannish cousin of our lembas, and learning to erect field fortifications with astonishing speed. They were not reckless fighters, for they fought with a calculated resolve, seeking to hold steady and fight wisely against the dark foes of their kingdom. Their life was marked by order and discipline, modeled, of course, after ancient Númenorian custom. Each township or region kept a militia of trained men, overseen by a captain or Turma leader, often of noble blood or a proven lineage. In times of peace, they tilled the soil, practiced their crafts, and raised their families. But in truth, their training never ceased. Every 6th day of the week was reserved for martial exercise. In the great fields beyond Fornost, or upon the gentle hills near Annúminas, you could see rows of men at dawn with spears in hand, their breath steaming in the cold air. It was ever a noble sight, seeing sword forms pass down from fathers to sons, drilled until their muscles knew them better than thought. The knights of Arnor were few, but their presence stirred the heart like trumpets on the wind. Drawn mostly from the nobility and higher households, these warriors trained from youth in riding, swordplay, and lance technique. Their steeds, often bred in the southern vales of Lake Evendim, were larger and more enduring than those of common stock, and were treated almost as kin. From the age of 12, noble sons were sent to train under knight commanders, often in household barracks or small keeps. There they learned riding under arms, the use of the heavy lance, and mounted archery, though the last was less common. Their practice was intense, hours each day, both in the saddle and out of it, and not merely in warcraft, for they also studied the histories of Númenor tactics of the elder days, and even the lore of wee elves. Knights bore plate-reinforced mail, with greaves, vambraces, and sometimes a full helm with a horsetail plume. Their shields were round or kite-shaped, often painted with the sigil of their house or of Arnor itself, 7 stars above a crown and tree. A well-equipped knight bore a sword of Númenorian steel, often engraved with Quenya script, though these grew rarer with each generation. When not at war, knights maintained the peace in their lands, judged disputes, and sometimes tutored militia in the towns. They were expected to lead, not merely fight, a noble ideal drawn from Elendil himself. Now let us talk of the Rangers, for even before the fall of Arnor, their kind walked the lonely paths of the north. Not all were of noble blood, but all were Dúnedain, long-lived, quiet, and grim-eyed. In the early days they were scouts, trackers, and wardens attached to regular companies. But as Arnor diminished, they became something else entirely, the unseen guardians of a fading realm. Their training began in childhood, not on the parade ground, but in the wild. A ranger's life was one of endurance, patience, and silence. They learned to hunt without sound, to read the tracks of goblin or warg, to move through the trees like shadow, and to use the longbow with deadly precision. Many also bore short curved swords, ideal for tight, close-quarter fighting. Unlike the knights or infantry, rangers seldom slept in towns. They built hidden shelters, knew the old paths between the ruins, and could live for weeks on the land. Their cloaks, oft dyed in muted greys and greens, were not merely for stealth. They were also woven with craft, taught by the elves of Lindon and Imladris, resisting wind and wet. I myself taught many of them Sindarin, for it was part of their duty to commune with the remnants of elvenkind and seek counsel in times of need. Many rangers in time came to carry tokens of elvish friendship, leaves of Lorien, stars of silver, or blades of Westernesse. They trained with each other, often in 2s or 3s, sparring, tracking, sharing tales around campfires where words were few and weighty. They did not fight in formation like soldiers. They fought in the dark, in isolation, guiding refugees, ambushing enemy scouts, and harrying orc bands from the hills. And in time, when the kingdom fell, it was they who remained. It was the Rangers who carried the line of kings in secret, guarding the north even when none knew their names. And though the realm was lost, and the land grew silent, the Dúnedain of the north remained. Rangers they became, secretive and few, yet they bore the flame of Arnor within their blood. From them came Aragorn, Elisar, who would unite the kingdoms once more. So remember, when you speak of armies and valor, that Arnor's strength was not only in its swords and mail, but in its purpose. They stood not for conquest or glory, but to guard the West, to preserve what was good and ancient and noble. And even in ruin, their line endured. The fire burns low now, and I feel the weight of memory too keenly tonight. Let the stars look kindly upon their forgotten graves, and let the world remember that once, in the north, there marched an army whose like shall not come again. So sleep easy, friends, and dream of ancient glories. I myself shall keep watch a while longer, and seek out the lost strength of Arnor in the stars.